you were to want to go to school, take some sort of like business class or, major in something like marketing or something like that. That way you kind of have that under your belt when you go into something like freelance. I didn't have that. So I had to ask a lot of questions to mentors to figure out how any of that worked.
On this episode of the Late Night Startup Show, we were speaking with Bryce France. Bryce is a photographer based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he does incredible work. Check out his Instagram, _Bryce France right now. Check out his work so you know what we're talking about. He does a lot of work for Atlanta United. He shot the Cup game where Atlanta United won, which is incredible. He does a lot of work for the Atlanta Falcons and lots of portraits and other types of photography too that are all incredible. But what's more incredible is how he's navigating the photography business at the age of 26. He's an incredible talent, and I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. But first, we have to thank our sponsors, RCR Video Marketing Group, an Atlanta-based, multifaceted video production company creating compelling content to fast forward your business, and Digits in Motion. Digits in Motion is a full-stack digital agency. Rob is an incredible guy. His team does great work. Whether you need an app developed or a website, hit up Digits in Motion and at least have the conversation, because Rob really wants what's best for you as a client. So check out our sponsors, check out Bryce before we get into this conversation, because you need to look at his work to understand how incredibly talented he is. Let's get into it. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining me. Just for people who don't know, I'm here with Bryce, and man, your work, I just see your Instagram and like, first of all, you go to some incredible games, sporting events, but the work that you're producing with your photography out of those events, and then even your non-sport photography is just incredible work, man. I blown away by some of your images.
Thank you.
So kudos to you for that. But just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what got you into photography.
Okay. My name's Bryce France. I am an Atlanta-based photographer. Kind of specialize more in the sports/portrait realm of things. I moved to Atlanta about a year ago. I'm from Valdosta, Georgia, which is 3.5 hours south of here. Went to school there, middle school, high school, college. Studied art at Valdosta State. Got my BFA there for fine art.
Okay. And
took a little bit to get up here. Once I got up here, though, it was all about, actually, is it cool to kind of just go into that a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
So once I got here,
Wait, this was last year when you got here?
This was October of
16?
Yeah.
2016? Okay.
Yeah. So October 2016, I come up here. Lucky enough, I get to stay with some family to kind of get it going. And I've been working in the restaurant industry for a while, so I figured, usual, just start working in a restaurant when I get up here. And I applied for a restaurant, and they're looking for someone who has more full time. Well, I can't do that because I'm assisting people who need me like in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was just thinking like most of the restaurants around here are going to be the same way. I might as well just go for it. Just start freelancing. Lucky enough, I had already started assisting a photographer here. His name's Kevin Lyles. He does a lot of work for Sports Illustrated and New York Times and a lot of big publications. So I've been assisting him even before I moved up here.
Oh wow!
So we get to go to some really cool games already. But yeah, I started freelancing. I think I was landing just more of assisting gigs at that time, and then sooner before I knew it, I was getting to shoot with like Atlanta United and the Falcons. Started doing some content creation for a local quarterbacks coach who actually has like some of his clients are like Deshaun Watson. He's going to be training Dwayne Haskins, who's going in the draft this year. so I got to be on that side of football as well. So not just the games, but get to see these players' lives on the other side.
Yeah.
Be more involved that way. So it's been pretty cool.
That's awesome. So let's go back just a few years, because not everyone has the level of skill that you have, and obviously through experience. But I feel like anything like photography or filmmaking, you have to have some natural ability or skill, just kind of born with. So when did you know that photography was something that you wanted to be a major part, not necessarily as a career, but be a major part of your life?
I'd say the first memory I have of holding a camera was when my dad and stepmom had, well, we thought it was a vacation, but they actually ended up eloping to Gatlinburg, and my dad bought me those disposable cameras to take pictures of their wedding. And I remember, like, it's one of the clearest memories I've ever had from my childhood of like getting those cameras and like having that responsibility of photographing something and being creative with that. And went through both. He got two of them and went through both of them before like we got to like, you may now kiss the bride kind of situation. I was like, I felt really bad, but he's like, no, it's fine.
Do you remember how many pictures each one had?
I think it was 24.
24.
Yeah. So definitely just went through each one of them really fast. Luckily, I didn't really grow up in the film age where I would have blown through rolls of film. But no, I think that was, if I look back, that was the first time I kind of knew that was something that I wanted to do. Yeah. And
And if I understand correctly, in your sophomore year of undergrad, you kind of like decided it was a passion and you wanted to pursue it. Yeah.
Sophomore year, I declared art twice. First time, don't know why it was. I didn't feel it very well, so I kind of got out of it, and then I jumped back in. That there's something about this that I like. I just don't know what it is yet. And there was I took a photography class, and one of the assignments, I don't know, I just latched onto really hard. Like it was challenging, but I loved that challenge. Like it was a really good way for me to just really express that inner like creative drive that I think has just been in me for a long time that I didn't know was there. I went from just photographing boring shit to just like we lit a 10-foot rope on fire and did like a long exposure around some like cars and stuff like that. And it was really night and day, and my professor knew it. And from there on, like I knew like we got to start like keep trying these like really over the top photos. So
did your professor see that and like knew that you had something?
I think so. Yeah. My professor was like really like, he took time out of his day to like look through my portfolio and help me whenever. I wasn't a really good student in school, but I just love photography so much. I would take the photography classes like once or twice just to kind of always be giving myself that challenge, those assignments. That school really changed how I like my work ethic when it came to photography, for sure.
Was it school or was it more or less that specific professor?
It was both. He definitely pushed me. Like one of the reasons when I got out of art the first time was I did take a photography class. I showed up the day of the critique to print out one of my photos. And me and one other person in the class were printing while they were critiquing the other room. We came in and we're putting up our pictures on the back wall. And he turned around and the whole class turns around. He's like basically just ripping us a new one because we were late to class. We were late on our assignment and we're we're distracting people's critiques while for the people who had turned their assignments in and stuff all the time. So I hadn't had that kind of experience before in my life. So I took it the wrong way the first time and scared the shit out of me, but came back and learned like I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that like critique.
Well, I'm sure you've been involved in these conversations of like, if you're a photographer or a filmmaker or anything in the creative world, that you don't need college or school.
Yeah.
What it is, because it sounds like it helped you immensely.
It did.
What are your thoughts? Do you think that it's important for a up and coming photographer who wants to learn to go to college for that? Or
I'd say if you kind of already have that talent before school, that if you were to want to go to school, take some sort of like business class or, major in something like marketing or something like that. That way you kind of have that under your belt when you go into something like freelance. I didn't have that. So I had to ask a lot of questions to mentors to figure out how any of that worked.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say you'd have to go to school for it. If you feel like you can get away with asking a lot of questions and assisting all the time, then I think save the money and just use it more on gear that you'll need later.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because it sounds like you regardless of school, kind of reached out to mentors and was willing to assist. And I assume that was for next to nothing pay, if any pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just being willing to do that has kind of projected you in the right path. With me, when people ask me the college question, I'm like, nope, you don't. If it's not a lawyer or doctor, you don't need college at all. But obviously, it's an ongoing debate with the rising cost of college and all that. And speaking of rising cost, I mean, all the gear is expensive for both of our professions. I mean, everything's so outrageously expensive. And the whole part of this show is to inspire, those up and coming entrepreneurs to start. Don't hesitate. But if it's if someone's interested in photography, they, look at the price of one decent lens and it's so intimidating. So what would you say to that person who thinks that they can't pursue what they're passionate about, aka photography, if they don't have the proper equipment?
I'd say find a way to, you don't have to get the biggest and baddest camera system. I started off, I had a point and shoot for a little bit, but I ended up getting like a Canon 60D and with a 50 millimeter lens. Didn't get the kit lens because I knew at the time that's not the look that I wanted. I liked the 50 shallow depth of field. So I stuck with that camera body and that lens for maybe 2-3 years. Just those two. And, just shot all the time. You don't need everything right away. You just pick something and just use it and learn it. And eventually the other stuff kind of will come. Rent if you need something. Yeah. But everything I normally shoot with is in my bag, which is like a backpack. That's all I really need. And if I need like a large lens for a sporting event at the time, I'll go rent it. But other than that, that's all I need. Yeah. And I have lights too, but that's another story later on.
So how many pictures would you say that you took? I know this is an asinine question because there's no specific answer, but there's a ballpark from the moment that you decided, all right, look, I'm not going to work in a restaurant. I'm just I'm going to go full speed ahead on photography. How many pictures do you think you took that you didn't get paid for until you got paid for that first picture?
A lot.
In the thousands? Easily?
Yeah, easily. Like even I have to count the ones before that, kind of in between. Just meeting with friends. I mean, that's how me and my fiance met. I asked her to take pictures, and it's what is the rule? It's like your first 10,000 images don't count, and then after that you can you'll start to grow. Yeah. So tons of images before now.
Yeah. Well, I read an article that you were answering some questions online. I think it was 2015, and you were already talking about just the importance of being patient and when someone tells you to just be patient. And but I love what you said in that article because you said regardless when your time comes, you're going to have a large body of work. but I think there's something to say about that. About there's being patient, but it's not being still.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, what did that look like for you? Like knowing that your time, you were going to get that moment, your time was going to come, and you were going to get paid one day to do this as a full time career. Was it ever difficult, like reminding yourself of that?
Somewhat, yeah. And to this day, there's opportunities that I'd still like to shoot.
Yeah,
and know that I got to be patient because my time will come. Like people will notice me when I'm ready, and it's also, yeah, it's being patient, but like when the opportunity comes to be ready for that moment. So, I listened to something recently where they're talking about like preparation is, what is the quote?
I wish I could help you out here, but I don't know what the quote is. Preparation.
It's basically like if you're scared to do something, if you're at least prepared to do it, then you know you might get a second chance. You'll feel better. The fear won't consume you if you're prepared for it. And part of that patience is not just okay, it'll come, it's coming. Like no, like going out shooting, practicing, learning your lights, learning how to talk to people. It's a lot of work to be patient.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a good way to put it. It's a crazy amount of work to be patient. But I like what you said about, learning to talk to people, because I think so many times people that do what we do, it's like they get so in their head about the artsy side of it. And I get that we're all artists and all creatives, but at the same time, there's like the business side of it. And part of that side is being able to talk to people and, having that customer service, I guess, side of your business. Did you find that difficult at first, or because it always has been for me? Like I've said it 1,000 times on this show that I'm like way more of an introvert than an extrovert. So like anytime I'm in a meeting or trying to sell someone on our video production company, it's like somewhat uncomfortable. Like I 10 years now and I'm still uncomfortable doing it. So
it's like you think about the process before you're talking to them.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes I even had that problem of thinking like, oh, I kind of already have this. I'm already running through my head what I would do with this person. And it's like you're expecting them to kind of tell you like, oh yeah, sure. Let's work together. But a lot of times that's not the case.
Yeah.
With me, it took me, I'm a good bit of an introvert as well.
Yeah.
But I've learned that in those situations where I know I need to have a conversation with somebody, that not to get all worked up inside, because that's like physiology, like my body just was like, oh no, you got to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Like it's like taking a second to calm down. Either just don't say much, just say what you have to say and be listening to that person that you're talking to, and you have a good conversation and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Don't feel like you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
I've gotten to, and it's helped a lot too on those practice shoots that we keep going back to, is like I'd meet up with people sometimes I've never met before. We've just, maybe messaged online once or twice, and we're walking around for 2-3 hours shooting and getting to know each other. And a lot of times they could become friends, or something leads to another, and I end up shooting something else because of them. So yeah, it's not as hard as you think it is, but at the same time, if you have that problem as a creative in this industry, like you have to kind of learn to get over it your own way.
Yeah, and very quickly if you want it to be a career, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of listening, do you ever like send photos out specifically for feedback or to get critiqued on?
Yeah.
To just people, or like your mentors and photographers that you look up to?
I'll send them off to my old photo professor, people I trust to kind of give me good feedback too. Like
not just
mom and dad aren't going to give you the best feedback, of course. Well, my mom actually will kind of give me good feedback because she went to art school, but I know in the forefront, that's not the best person to ask. I'll send them off to my old professor, my mentors, people my mentors recommend to look at them.
Yeah.
Things like that. That way I know how to improve.
Has any of their feedback like really pissed you off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been times where it's like, oh shit, like I did not think like that before. When like they'll say, this is really good. Like a recent example was the NFL stuff that I shot. I think it was 3 or 4 games in. This is my first time shooting football like this. And I sent my portfolio off to like one of SI's better photographers. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I knew him kind of, so I knew he would be kind of hard on me. But the phone call we had about my portfolio was like, I did not expect it to go the way it did.
Yeah.
As far as like, like basically got an F on my assignment is what it sounded like.
Yeah.
But he did give me some really good pointers to think about during games. And I really took that advice into the coming games. And I really did feel like it gradually got better because I was thinking about it, him bitching at me in the back of my head.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, what was the pointer? What was the...
So like certain situations where, let's say you're shooting football and you're on the sideline, if you don't have a lens that's like a, 300, 400 millimeter lens, don't really try to shoot the game with a shorter lens. Like, if you have like a 200 or 135 or even a 50, don't try to shoot the game like you have a long lens. Just look around. Everybody else is shooting that stuff. Look around, try to find the story that you can shoot with the type of glass that you have. So I started doing that, like on purpose, rented a 200 millimeter lens just to kind of, all right, let's wait and see what I can just use this with. What situations can I find that I can use this equipment with?
Yeah.
Ended up shooting a lot better, like touchdowns, for instance. I'm a wide person.
Yeah.
I really like to shoot wide.
Like fisheye.
I did shoot fisheye a couple. I loved that this season. The couple of games that I got to shoot fisheye were pretty cool.
I saw one picture. It was like from the corner of the end zone. You saw the field goal post. Like it had that curvature to it from the lens. And then you saw like the other photographers with their 400 mil off to the right of the frame. I was like, this is such a cool image because you got like that behind the scenes type of feel to it. It just, I don't know. It felt interesting to me. Well, because I've shot a lot of the Chick-fil-A bowl games, the college football games at the stadium. I haven't shot one at the new stadium. I've been in the new stadium, but just not for work. But yeah, there's just something about being on that sideline, man, that's exhilarating. And I rented a 400 millimeter lens for a red camera one time, and I'm like walking around with a tripod and a monopod trying to get that shot. Which is why I was so curious about what the advice was. Now I'm like, I should have just shot wide.
I mean, why
did I shoot that long lens?
Like if that's you, like if a lot of sports photographers are used to, I think, primarily shooting on longer lenses, but I come from more of like portraits and things like that, where I'm shooting on like a 35 or a 50, 85. And going into an environment like that, you're just like, you get overwhelmed. And because the game is out there, but you just have to learn, like the game will kind of like come to you if you set yourself up and just be patient. So,
and also, I mean, it's just practical in a way because everyone has those long lenses there. And it's easy to just kind of create the same photo that so many other people are creating. And that's what I loved about your shots that I see on your Instagram is like, they just feel different. They don't feel like the typical sideline picture with the long lens. There's something about it that feels more in the moment, not less spectator, I guess. Which I think that's huge. Like that part of sports photography to me is kind of missing. And I'm not like so in the industry, but like I said, everyone has the long lens photos, but it's that in the moment that is special.
And I get that a lot from, I feel like I learned that and grasped that from my mentor, Kevin, because all the games that I was like assisting him on with Sports Illustrated, like it's just watching him and seeing how he's like seeing the game differently compared to other people. And I think it's called feature work, where you're not really covering the game itself. You're covering like these little artistic moments that happen throughout the game. And Kevin's really good about that.
So I was talking about that article that you answered a few questions for in 2015. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but they asked what was your most memorable moment. And in that article, I don't think you said you had not had that moment yet. You're still waiting for it. What about now? Have you had it? I mean, you've shot like Atlanta United, the football game. So
I still feel like that way. Like I still feel like I haven't had that moment yet, because I know it's, if I say I have that moment, then I'm kind of saying like that's the top of what I want to achieve in my head. But I know there's more that I want to achieve, and I've had some really cool experiences, but not the moment.
So you almost refuse to say that you've had that moment. Yeah. Which is neat, because it keeps you on your toes, I guess. Always striving for that moment, even though you refuse to tell yourself you've had it. It's just so interesting how like our minds work as artists and creatives. It's feel like we are always having to put ourselves in a weird space mentally that most people in a usual like 9 to 5 or more. I guess art is a common career, but we all approach it, I think, differently. And we find little quirks like that just keep us going for the next thing. Keep us a little out of our comfort zone. Well, obviously you're killing it. I mean, you're shooting some of the biggest games, and all your portrait work looks incredible. How did you get to the point where you knew, okay, this is what I'm doing? Like, I'm making enough money to full time. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing for my career. It took me a while to feel that way. Like, I did so much spec work and free work and all that. And still, I had a part-time job when I first started out. And similar to what you said, my part-time job was like, well, you can't take off. We need you here. And I would literally be like, okay, fuck you. I'm taking it off. Sorry. Cause I knew that filmmaking and video was my passion. And eventually I just, I left that job because I was patient and started making enough money to justify leaving it. But you moved to Atlanta, was like, screw it. I'm not doing restaurant work. I'm going straight in photography.
I mean, I haven't, again, it kind of goes back to like knowing, like I look back on it like, oh, I'm achieving some really cool stuff. Am I where I want to be financially still? Not exactly. But that just comes with, better networking, better jobs, more confidence. I think that's something really big with income, like just knowing how to like invoice people, tell them what you're worth. That was a really big struggle at the beginning to try to figure out what am I worth to so and so. Well, and that's what another issue I had was I would shoot something that was considered a big gig and then shooting something small, but my head was telling me you're shooting, so they have to be equal. And I had to get over like, no, like this was a smaller thing. I can charge them smaller. This one's big. That, it's sorry if I'm sounding like mumbled. It's just a lot to think about.
Well, it's funny because hearing you say that, I'm like, God, that's so right. Like, it doesn't sound mumbled at all to me, because I tell people that all the time. It's like, if you're going to tell one client that, my, like in video is like day rates, right? So I say, if you're going to charge one client one day rate, because it's a smaller gig, and then you're charging another client that's a bigger gig, a larger day rate, eventually you're going to start resenting the hell out of that smaller client. And then it just causes this kind of internal fight and drama because you're torn then. And it's a difficult conversation to talk about for sure, because you don't want to outprice the smaller clients if you need that work. So yeah, it's one of those things as the people like us in this industry, it's always just such a hard conversation to have, because I'm like, no, if you think that you're worth this much, charge it regardless. But I didn't start out that way. Like I was starting out charging shit rates. And then eventually like I lost those clients because I eventually was like, look, I have to increase my rate. Like this is what I'm charging other clients. I have to start charging the same thing. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to find another guy that is cheaper.
Yeah.
Do I regret losing those clients? Not at all. But it's also just a telltale sign of like, it's a serious conversation to have with your mentors or with other people around you that are in a similar situation to figure out how to navigate that hardship. So what did the outcome look like for you? Did you just get to a point where it was like, look, I'm going to charge this regardless of what I'm shooting, big or small? Or
it was, I look at it as far as, because if I'm shooting anything small, it's mainly like some sort of like portrait work or test shoots for some, maybe models need test shoots if I'd end up doing that on the side. So I'm still kind of flip-flopping between, you know, I want to still work with these people, but at the same time, bigger things are starting to happen here and there. And also with the bigger situations, you start most of the time, smaller things, you're at X, and that stays pretty frequent. With the bigger people, you kind of, I've worked like on retainers and things like that, where you start at X, then you're going to go to Y and then go to Z eventually.
Yeah.
But it's when do you go to Y and when you go to Z? And if you do it too early, they're going to like, whoa. If you do it too late, they're going to be like, well, I thought we had this, we were on X. So I'm learning that XYZ now. And then the smaller clients, I'm just kind of like, if I have time to, I'd love to work with you guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So there can be a balance, but it's also being very strategic about moving from X to Y to Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I love it because it's just like these things that people don't talk about in this industry, and it's like navigating that and being strategic and thinking about it. We have a few retainer clients that we've experienced that struggle. Yeah. It's like, you hold on to the retainer agreement for so long, or that one price so long, then when you do want to go up, they're like, you've been on this rate for a year and a half, so why are you going up? That's interesting. So content creation, I know that's another thing that you're doing. Is that what exactly do you mean when you say you're doing content creation? Is it still photography like centric, or are you just, what content creation to me is a huge realm of things? But
you have to be a photographer, videographer, graphic designer, illustrator.
So you're doing all
everything.
That,
and I think it's helping me learn my lane as far as like, what do I have the patience for and what do I not have the patience for? What do I want to outsource to somebody else rather than to do it myself? Like I've done some stuff for, like I said, that coach, like he has his own like personal brand that he's trying to maintain. So I'm making photograph training and make, he'll have photos of the training with all his clients, and then we'll make graphics with quotes and things like that. And we make inspirational videos with, a couple graphics thrown in here and there too. Yeah. But the more I've done video, I've started to understand like that's probably not my thing, because just the way my photo brain works is just, it's so stuck in that still.
Yeah.
Then I can't think like all the frames ahead and all the frames before that. Like editing video is so hard for me because it's really hard for me to like tell that story that way when I can have 20 frames from a couple hours and just be like, this is how it happened. So like with some of the people that I've worked with doing video, I'm like, I'm going to start kind of bringing down, if you want to do video, we can, if you absolutely need it, we can definitely do it. But I really would like to, like, it's having that conversation with them and letting them know, like, this is what I'm working towards, and we can outsource it if you want to, or if it's an absolute necessity, we can do it.
Yeah.
But but let's try to focus on this, if that's okay. And it's pretty fun, actually.
Yeah.
Like content creation, you kind of learn how to be this creative director almost. Be a creative director. And that's one thing in my head that I've been contemplating is like, do I want to be a creative director or art director or something like that one day rather than a photographer?
Yeah.
Because it's fun to kind of like take all those pieces and work with a team and do things like that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like we're all in content creation these days. I mean, if you're doing anything freelance or have your own business, like you have to be some sort of a constant creative director or content creator or media company. Just the nature of the world that we live in on social media and all that. But I am curious to know, so do people think just because you're good at photography that you're also good at video? Because I get that shit all the time. Like just because I'm a videographer, cinematographer, I have everyone, hey, can you do photos for this or that for me? I'm like, I don't do photography. It doesn't click. Like just how you were saying video, it just doesn't compute to you. Like photography to me, like when I first started out, I would like go to my backyard and do typical boring photos, just because I had a camera. But over time, I'm like, photography just doesn't make sense in my head. I can't think in one still image at all. But do people assume that just because you're good at photography that you're good at video too?
They do. Yeah.
They do?
They definitely, I mean, they think you're artsy.
Yeah.
That's what they throw like, oh, you're an artsy person. You can do this and that. You can draw me, like you can draw a portrait of me and all that stuff. And like once you get to this level of like wanting to be a photographer or videographer or something, it's like, that's all that can occupy. That's probably why video stopped kind of coming into my head, was just like, I want to focus on this one thing and get really, really good at it. And I mean, no matter what, I can't get away from people telling me or asking me to do video also, but I mean, it's fine. It's not like I'm like, no, like leave me alone. It's like, if it's needed, then yes, but if not, no.
It's just crazy. I think it's like, I forget when the first DSLR like came out that could do video as well. It was like probably around like the 7D or shortly before that. And I'm just always curious if it's since DSLRs have started to become a common video camera, is that why people assume that I do photography just as good as I can do video? Or is that just always been a thing?
I think it's always been a thing.
Yeah.
Like going back to going through art school, people can they assume like, oh, you can paint, oh, you can draw, you can no, it's like a lot of the people that go through art school they dabble in those other things, but they're really good at one thing, if not two, but that one thing is what they're really good at. I think that's always been in it. With media now, it's like, that's what a lot of people need. So that's become more of the question rather than, can you draw me this and that?
Yeah. Did you shoot the MLS National Championship game or whatever the title of that name?
Final?
The Cup final? Yeah. You did? Awesome. How was that, man?
It was fun. It was one of the best games in that stadium I've ever been to.
Do you ever struggle realizing that you're just spectating more than actually doing your job?
Once you're focused, trust me, like the first couple college games I got to go to, being on the sideline, it was euphoric because you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience, man.
And it was college football being one of the first games I'd be on the field for. It's because those games are, NFL is great.
Yeah.
MLS is great. College football is crazy.
Yeah.
And just that energy in the stadium is a lot different.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn how to focus through the crowd and through the players. And I grew up watching sports and seeing people run by me that, I've watched and admired for a long time. You have to learn how to focus and just not fanboy out.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember shooting the Chick-fil-A, one of the Chick-fil-A kickoff games for college football at the Dome. And it was Georgia. I want to say Georgia and Auburn that opened it up. But I don't know. I'm a UGA fan. So I remember it was one of the first times I shot a college football game too. And just being there on the sideline and me being a Georgia fan and seeing them, like I was shooting them run out of the tunnel and I was like at the very end of the line of photographers and I had my camera down and like they're all running towards me. I'm like, these fuckers are giants, man. They're so big. Like I'm like 5'6". I'm a small guy and all that. And these guys are running towards me and I'm like, this is insane. And then just the energy from the crowd and the coaches and the players, if a play goes bad or interception happens and like, how pissed they get, and then if they score a touchdown, how it's just different being so close to the sideline and the players and the coaches and hearing them erupt in cheers than being in the crowd and hearing the crowd erupt in cheers and like mixing all that together. It was such a incredible experience. It's one of those jobs that like every year that or any year I get asked to shoot, I'm like, yep, I'm doing it. And it's more so just because it's so fun. Like it's not even about getting paid really. It's so fun to shoot those games. Yeah. But did you have like a love for sports or is it just kind of where photography took you?
I've grown up playing sports, mainly soccer. I've grown up playing soccer and basketball. Football, I think like once I started to understand sports more in a like fan way, like I never grew up. I mean, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, most like half of my childhood. So like grew up around a lot of basketball, Louisville, UK basketball. So I knew that way how to be a fan of either U of L or UK. But once I started understanding what's outside of that with like football and things like that, it just grew on me. And coming from a city like Valdosta, who's all about football. Like they're all-time winningest high school. That my high school is the all-time winningest football high school in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like they take that thing so serious. And I don't know, that in a weird way made me appreciate football more. And then doing this made me appreciate football in a whole different way.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for a lot of that.
So what are you shooting with these days?
Like equipment wise?
Yeah.
I'm still on my 5D Mark III. Okay. Going back to when I told you that I had that 50, for the longest time I was shooting on the 50. It's kind of what I want to shoot, but for some reason this like focally is not exactly right. And then I did some research and found out like the 35 was more of that angle that I really love.
Yeah.
So I got a 35 and really just have that 35, 24-70 in my 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
And that's all I've really needed other than renting something here and there.
That's awesome. Because it sounds like you just kind of found what you loved to see and stuck to it. Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of people fall in this trap of, they see all these photographers with the 70-200 lens and they're like, gotta have that. Yep. And then they see some 16-35 or something come out. Or I think they just came out with like Canon just came out with like a 28-70 or something like that. I think so. And they got to have that lens and all that. But like, I admire that you're like, look, I want this look and this is all I need to do that. Yeah. You don't need everything to do it. Yeah. No, that's absolutely awesome. The 35 is probably my favorite lens. Ray is my business partner and director. And man, we love the 35. Yeah. It's just such a gorgeous look, both in photography and film, but specifically in film, it's like wide enough. Yeah. But like kind of tight enough to get like that really good lifestyle shot. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's just such a gorgeous, gorgeous lens. I shoot most of my interviews on 35. Okay. And I know a lot of people that show up with their 50. I'm like, all right, yeah, your background's going to look really, really blurry and milky. The bokeh's going to be great, but like the 35 is just a better look. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, what would you say to like the younger you when you realized that photography was something you wanted to pursue? Like, if you look back on you then, what would you say just from what you know now? You're going to have to work really hard. You're going to have to learn to get over a lot of what you tell yourself.
it's a lot of mental things, really. Just preparing. I would say, like, just prepare yourself mentally just to be okay with who you are. 'Cause a lot of people are going to try to get you to go this way and that way. But you are who you are, and people love, if you want to be known for a certain look, or, want to be hired for certain things, like, you have to be who you are.
Yeah.
Like you said about the whole lens thing, where people are buying this because so and so did that. Like, I mean, you're just gonna be a cookie cutter. I don't want to be cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So if I had more time to be more prepared that way. I'm 26 now. Like, I wish I could be doing what I'm doing now when I was like 21 or 20. I'm all about like reaching that next step faster than I can, or than people expect you to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear you say, like, just be who you are, be yourself and all that, which is great. But someone in your profession who actively searches for feedback and has mentors, does it ever get difficult, like, listening to that advice or that feedback, and then maybe you feel in your gut that it's going away from who you are, and you have to, like, reel it back in? Or does that ever get difficult?
There's been some time, it's been recent, where I've kind of like picked up on that's why it's good to know your mentors and the people you're asking, rather than just, I mean, I've sent my portfolio to people to have it looked at and get their point of view,
because people worthy of being like mentors.
Yeah, because I know they're professionals. But, people tell me that they are professionals. I like their work.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to know who they are and understand like where they're coming from when they tell you this and this is wrong, this and this is right, then it's like you kind of understand what they would do differently, but you don't have to do differently. There was things in that conversation that I was telling you about earlier that where he was telling me I was doing wrong, but like that voice in my head was telling me like, no, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
If you change that, you're losing that thing that you have. So and that's tough to tell yourself that, like, stay with that.
Yeah.
Even though someone who's a, professional is telling you no. And I'm sure it'll be a thing like that for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like that's a constant battle for everybody. But I mean, what I'm hearing through all of it is, just relationships. It's like you have good relationships with your mentors. Your professor, kind of leaned into you a little bit outside of just the classroom and like built that relationship. And I think that's universal amongst all careers and industries is, if there is some focus on just building genuine relationships, then is there really a downside to it at all? Can there be? I would say no. Relationships are most important. It's really, the whole reason we started this podcast, because I wanted to start building relationships with local creatives and entrepreneurs. And also I wanted to market our video production company. So, but yeah, that's what I'm hearing is like, just focus on relationships and then let it take you from there.
Yeah. Because some people feel like you have to have like, it's just like if you look at it outside of business and just as a personal thing, like, you don't have to have a bunch of friends to say that you have friends. I mean, as long as you have 2 or 3 close friends, that's all you really need.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the really close personal relationships that you have.
Yeah, totally. What's next for you? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Oh,
the question every creative hates.
It's just always getting better, learning the small thing, like what small thing is going to make me improve here and there.
Still a photographer.
Still a photographer. Maybe, I don't know. I do kind of like to let things kind of guide me. Like, if an opportunity comes where it's like, this sounds interesting, I might kind of take that and see where that leads to. But other than that, I know it's photography, some sort of photography. There will be a photography aspect in whatever it is in my future. it's just I can't get away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and sitting down and talking. I mean, I think I keep saying it, like the people that are like us, there just can't be enough stories told of guys like yourself that have somewhat figured it out. Like, you're doing it full time, and that alone speaks volumes to the amount of work and talent and patience that goes along with it. Because it's just such a difficult industry to navigate and to break into. And there's the constant battle of wanting to see more and wanting to earn more. But there's so many people that are photographers. So it's also being okay with not earning the most money out of any photographer in Atlanta. It's like just knowing yourself and being happy with yourself. And I think you gave some great insight. Where do people find you? Let's link it up. Give us your social media and website and all that stuff.
The website's brycefrance.com. Social media, I have _Bryce France on Instagram. I use Twitter here and there. You can find me on there if you want to or not, but mainly just Instagram and my website are perfectly fine.
Awesome, man. What's your next gig? Is it scheduled yet?
Yes, there are. I can't really say what it is.
Okay. I love it. I love that.
Thank you.
Now that's when you know you're doing real work. Is like you can't say what it is. No, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it for having me.